Okay, and here we go. Yes, folks, I want to remind you also, this is such a great time of year. You want to have your property the best it can be. And someone that I want to recommend to you is, in fact, JD Lawn Care. Lawn Care, they can really improve your property. Have a spring cleanup done with JD Lawn Care, and they do fantastic work. Again, you want your property to look the best it can possibly look, and the way I think you want that. And one of the ways you can do that, there's two ways. One way is by contacting JD Lawn Care today, JD Lawn Care Tree Service, but give them a call, especially for the spring cleanup. Give them a call at 401 441 0154 401 441 0154. There's another company that I want to mention. And again, folks, we are just getting started on this Monday. We have a lot to get to, and I'm so impressed with them. And it's Mosquito Joe. Mosquito Joe. They're based out of Cumberland, and you can sit outside in your yard. They treat it for mosquitoes with Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island. And the company is so impressive. And give them a call, get a free quote at 401 426 2034. Mosquito Joe of Rhode Island, 401 426 2034. Now, we are going to talk with Justin Katz, managing editor of anchorrising.com. And our segment is Politics This Week. Now, right now, we are live on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. You can always listen online at the website, which is dpetro.com. But right now, we are live on X, we're live on Facebook, and we're also live on YouTube. And I implore people to make sure that I know a lot of people are not on X. I mean, I mostly use it just because of news and for what I do. But I understand a lot of people that are not on it. I like it. I think it's a great platform. But make sure you follow our YouTube page, and then also you can find us on Facebook. Now, with Facebook, we are back um, to our Road Patrol Live. And so, but I fully understand it's not for everyone, because I get complaints from people. I don't like these live police scenes. Well, you know, you don't have to watch the live police scenes, but for those that do, and I like the concept because we never know what can happen, and we're out and we're live, and I've always been attracted to live programming. There's so little live. The live content that you can get now is, in fact, I mean, it's still. I think there's a reason why it does as well as it does, and that is actually the NFL. Because and also, by the way, college basketball ratings from March Madness were huge, huge. College football just had the most successful year they've ever had as far as ratings. And I know, listen, for some people, they don't get how important the ratings factor is. But March Madness, um, college basketball, when all is said and done, it will actually get higher ratings than, like, I have no interest in the NBA. I just don't. I think the game is ruined. I don't know what they could do to fix the game, but NBA ratings, March Madness ratings, college basketball will do far better than the NBA finals. Let alone, we don't even know. I know it just started, Celtics and all this other stuff. And I see people posting on social media, oh, all excited going to the Celtics game, but the game itself, it's just not a good product. The other sport that is really fallen, they're trying to save it, is Major League Baseball. But I went last year, I went the entire year. I did not watch one game. I saw someone posted a picture. I think it was Fenway Park. I don't know if it might have been from yesterday. And when you talk about empty, I mean, the bleachers in the right field totally empty. And I have no interest in watching whatever they call themselves, the Savannah Bananas or something like that. But live programming. So I encourage you, whatever platform you're on, we do it. I do it on Facebook because then we can share it to other platforms. When sometimes if I'm at an established scene, and what we will do, we'll probably actually shut down and then come back live on YouTube as well. And then we are going to do a lot of live stuff on YouTube, but then many times we will go live on TikTok while we're at a scene. But for those of you that watch Saturday night, we'll be out tonight, and it's all weather dependent because it just I've been doing this for a while and I've tried different forms. Not everyone does live. I mean, it's definitely for security reasons, it's not the safest thing to do where you're out and sometimes like Saturday night arriving at the scene before the police get there. But if you saw it on Saturday night, and we have it posted. So I mean, I think the best way to watch it is watch it live. Some people do, a lot of people watch it on replay. And actually more people watch it on replay than live. But if you become a subscriber on Facebook, you can watch it live. And even I'm thrown at it's one thing if I were to go to the lodge and a number of people say hello and they enjoy, the program and what I do. If I were to go to K's, people come up, they say hello, sometimes do a photo and so forth. But what even surprises me is, I mean, we're in the poorest sections of the state, and the number, if you saw it, the number of homeless people that know who I am, and I don't mean that as I mean, I'm not how do I'm amused by it, I think is the best word. I'm not offended by it. I'm not touting it around. Some people don't get that. Sometimes I've posted, like, I hate to brag, but I am the most recognized person in Ornyville, and some people will post, "That's nothing to brag about." I'm saying it facetiously. I'm not saying that it's I'm not saying it's gonna be the first line of eventually the death notice. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you watched it, number 1, the number of homeless people, and then as we're going to the different scenes, uh, we, and then those people, and it's not just, the woman there that was yelling for me to stop streaming, what have you. Um, it's then her neighbors and so forth, and it's just funny. And that's what I kind of bring to it. So it's not. I know some people do police stuff, and it's all like this is serious business, just the facts, blah blah blah. Like I get that, and sometimes we have programming like that, and sometimes the story calls for that. I should say, Brown University shooting. There was nothing funny about that. That night that was about as serious as it gets with the manhunt. But then there's other times it is just there's a lot of characters out there. I also want to just clarify. You got to understand. So when we heard the call, and this is posted, it's online on Facebook. I don't think we have it on YouTube yet, but it will be. But we received a call that an ex, the child. No, how do they say it? The child's father arrived on the scene. The child's father arrived on the scene and assaulted the mother of the child and then smashed a window or broke in or something like that. So and they said he's still on scene. So as I'm arriving and the police are searching the house, the real interest is, are we going to see them find him, the perpetrator, the father of the child? But instead, and then I mean, that's pretty good content. If you he also, I've been at stuff where they come running out. One time I was trying to trip the guy as he was trying to escape. And then people say, you should not get involved. What do you mean? If I can help the police, I'll help the police. If the police would let me go in and film as they're searching, I would do that. But anyhow, as we were live, the woman that apparently called the police, instead of just being quiet, instead of maybe quietly going down the street with her child, I think she had a vehicle. I don't know. Front of the house is a wreck. with trash and garbage and so forth. So she had to call the police. Supposedly she was assaulted. The father of her child, so some point, former lover. I'm not, no one is suggesting they were married, but God forbid in 2026. But she decides, now think of that. Instead of like a normal person would either be with a neighbor or ask the police, can we sit in the back of your cruiser while we're searching the house? No, where is she? She's out in front of the house on the phone and then yelling at me. But I want you to understand, and the police quickly say to an individual like that, he has every right to be here. He can do whatever he wants. And she's using foul language and screaming and yelling as if I'm the focal point. And for those of you that saw it, I mean, the front of the house, number one, I don't believe she actually owns the house. So they're probably a tenant. I don't know what floor of the home they live on. Home is a wreck with trash and a mattress and a look like seat cushions and all this other, oh my God, pigsty. But her focal point is number one, she knows who I am. And then number two, trying to, and swearing and trying to, like, it's just, but I want you to know, because then I understand someone would say, wow, I'm not there for that. I'm there to ideally, we have the police capture the individual. And as the police were trying to calmly tell her, he has every right to be there. I mean, Providence for me is a home game. So that's my home court. I know the city better than anyone. I've lived on the east side of Providence. I lived for a period of time in the area around off Chalkstone, between Chalkstone Academy, and then you have Atwell's in that area. Um, my my well, my grandmother lived in Boston, but my mother, was born in Providence. In that is considered the Mount Pleasant area. My dad grew up in Fox Point. I mean, I know the city better than anyone in the media. So it's a home court. It's a home game. We're not doing that. But I want you to understand what does that mean? So I should shut off. Oh, don't film, as then the police are maybe going to capture the guy, or maybe there's going to be a fight, or who knows what we're going to capture. So I want you to understand. I'm not trying to be insensitive. Some people, you should be sensitive and stuff like that. Number one, that's not happening. And number two, I try to put myself in their shoes. In that situation, the main focal point should not be me. It should be, you need to get a family member over there or a friend. Ideally, remove your child from that area. Like if you really want to back up, why don't we like take care of some of the trash in front of the house? I mean, it doesn't have to look like Sanford and Son, for crying out loud. But me filming, being live, should be the least of your concern in front of the home. But that's just who they are. So I put, I see sometimes people, oh, that's insensitive. Why are you like, listen, you don't worry about, I'm the least, I'm not even in the top 20 of things they should be concerned about. Number one, you have a problem with the child's father. Number two, what is with why does the house look like a wreck? I see broken windows. I think it's broken. Anybody working here? My God. But again, it doesn't stop us. In the other part is the amount of I mean, that did throw me, the number of homeless people greeting me. I mean, it's kind of like Cheers, where everyone knows your name. I didn't realize that in what is considered heavy drug trafficking, very dangerous, seedy part of Broad Street, I just never envisioned when I was at St. Paul's School at Bishop Hendricken that someday I'd be on a first name basis with all of the unhoused. Hey, that's where it is. We'll take fans of all kinds, folks. I'm the mayor of Homelessville. This portion of our program is brought to you by call Corey today. Fred asked me about this. Who is it that could epoxy his garage? Fred, call Corey, Quality Asphalt Seal Coating, 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating, because they will do decorative epoxy floor systems, garage, basement, many other concrete surfaces, easy to clean, and it just looks fantastic. Fred or anyone, call Corey 401 283 9815. You can find them on Facebook. They're also their online addresses, qualityasphaltsealcoating.com. Now, remember, they also, if you own a commercial parking lot, seal coating greatly improves the look of your parking lot and business. So they can repair, keep the asphalt safe, but also they can fresh line striping, keeps the traffic moving. But just if you have, as far as cracks or large potholes, quality asphalt seal coating, call Corey today. Free estimate, 401 283 9815. Now, we are going to talk with Justin Katz, excuse me, managing editor, anchorrising.com. There is good news, by the way. They did capture he turned himself in. He's now in custody, the shooter of Federal Hill. And he turned himself in early this morning. Now that tells me I had heard he was out of state in I think I heard New York, I heard Connecticut, but they did get him. And despite, I don't care what anybody says, that is still really remarkable to me. That and by the way, the last time I'm going to mention it, but if you uh log on to depetro.com, our website, we do have the video up of they're in the outside part of the restaurant, and the man that ends up being the victim, of which we covered his face. You can't tell who he is or anything like that. He didn't do anything wrong. He's a victim, but he's arguing with this person. So they obviously know each other. I wonder what the argument was over. Who were they arguing over? Who was going to pick up the check? I doubt it. Were they arguing over whether or not they were going to go in business together? Gee, what could have sparked an argument where one got up and then pulled a handgun and then, shot the other? So something very serious. I have no idea what was involved, but the family contacting me, take down the video. Well, we're the only ones that have it. It's a very high profile crime. It even made, news throughout New England. And the answer obviously is no. We did block out his face so you can't see the face of the victim. And I understand this whole nature of, because I get these messages, could you respect the family and take down the video? Well, respect the family. This is someone who's arguing with someone, clearly knows who they are, arguing with someone who's in possession of a handgun inside a restaurant. And you're asking me to respect the family. Do they respect the public? Do they respect themselves? Why do I have to? Can I respect the family? Would I respect the family and take the video down? Well, the fact that they're arguing and it led to gunplay tells me they don't respect the general public and they don't respect the restaurant. And so the answer is no. No, we're not taking it down. Now, we are going to, as I mentioned, talk to Justin Katz next hour. Now, I also want to play Sabina Matos, the lieutenant governor, was on Newsmakers, and those guys are good. Those guys are good sports because they let her. I mean, she hasn't been on in a very long time. Tim White, Ted Nesi, and to me, they just like let her kind of babble on quite a bit. But she did agree to go on, and the part that I wanted to highlight is just the notion that she gets into, and I'll probably that the part that she gets into has to do with you know what, I'll wait till the top of the hour. That was She basically is saying that she wants to abolish ICE, and they don't flesh it out. There's a lot of things that she says, which is just foolishness. I think one of the things about Sabina Matos, and by the way, it has nothing to do. Whoever would be the person saying these things, her answers are just, it's uncomfortable to me that she holds the position of lieutenant governor, and her mindset is complete insanity. as far as they ask her, what does it tell you that there's 4 people, at least 4, it could be 3, but at least 3, possibly 4, running against you in the Democrat primary? She said, well, I think it's a good thing. It shows that I'm doing a good job and they all want it. No, excuse me. That's not a good thing. Like, talk about bad spin. She is tone deaf. She shouldn't be in the job. We know that. McKee picked her thinking she could help him get the Hispanic vote. I don't know whether or not she helped him. But they also said, you have the least amount of money raised for this primary you're going to be in. And she said, well, I don't need to, because a lot of people don't know me. No one's donating to you because they think you're the Titanic going under, that you're not going to make it. Oh, they have to. Everyone knows me, so I don't have to raise as much money. You have 4 people running against you. Yeah, that's a good thing. It shows that I'm doing a good job, so they all want it. No, it shows that they all believe you're beatable. But the part about that I will play is she's talking about ICE, and she wants to abolish ICE. And she says that, and they didn't, nothing against those guys. I'm not trying to play Monday morning quarterback. I'm not. But, and again, hey, they're the ones that call the shots and they can pick it. But before I get to the part where she talked about the fact that she talked about abolishing ICE, and I thought that was interesting because they just like moved on. They didn't fully flesh out the answer. But what they didn't ask her about, no, that's not what I want. What they didn't ask her about was the fact that of this story. This was on Martin Luther King. This was the night of Martin Luther King. The Manton 4, they beat the one in the blue. Notice the story went away. The one in the blue, he's 11 years old. The other 3 are 12. They beat a 51-year-old man to death on Manton Avenue. Matos, the lieutenant governor, she lives less than a quarter of a mile of where this happened. She's never commented on it. And what I can't get over is they didn't even ask her about it. Like, I don't, and again, I'm not trying to, but I don't get that. How do you not even ask her about it? Not even a question. She's talking about crime. She's talking about she wants to be lieutenant governor again. Like, how do you not ask her that those 4 individuals, the Manton 4, with one being 11, literally beat a man to death in a random crime? They didn't rob him. They didn't like push him. They beat him to death. And the question was not even asked. I don't get that. But I start to wonder, again, I understand it's newsmakers. I'm going to play it right now. Tim White, Ted Nesi, it's their program. They get to ask what they want. I'm not suggesting you do, that's the only thing that you ask about. But I'm telling you, for the life of me, I don't understand that you don't even ask about it. Like, not one question about it. But when they had Gabe Amo on, the congressman, they didn't ask him about the mural that's in his district. Let me be very clear. I understand that they wouldn't want to talk about it.
Every pressure washer on the market.
But that doesn't mean
12 News is your local election headquarters, and it is so far the most packed race in the Democratic primary.
5 candidates are running for lieutenant governor, including the incumbent Sabina Matos. She was our guest on Newsmakers this week, and Tim White is here now with the details. Tim?
Winning re-election would mark a political comeback for Matos after her 2023 run for Congress was derailed by a campaign scandal. Sabina Matos started her 2023 congressional race as the frontrunner, but wound up placing 4th after forged signatures were discovered on her nomination papers. An investigation resulted in 2 of her campaign contractors getting charged. Holly McLaren ultimately pleaded no contest, getting a year of probation. Christopher Cotham is scheduled to change his plea, according to court records.
Governor, I have to think that experience has changed how you plan and run a campaign. Am I right?
Totally. The process, honestly, it was very emotionally draining for me and my family.
Matos herself was never implicated in wrongdoing.
I was always in support of the Attorney General and the state police doing an investigation, a full investigation to find out what happened.
But it's clear many people think the political
Yeah, look, there's 4 people running against her. 4 running against her.
damage is done. 4 other Democrats are challenging Matos in the primary so far.
Ideally, it would be easier for anybody not to have a primary. There are some of my colleagues that looks like they're not going to have a primary. Good for them. But this is a democracy.
And if Matos does win the primary, she is set to face an experienced Republican challenger, former state rep John Laughlin.
People love to say that the lieutenant governor does nothing, but everybody wants to be lieutenant governor. So I guess there's work to be done there.
Matos.
You know, she also, again, that is on Newsmaker. She also, by the way, she said that the office has been a sleepy office for a while, and no one was doing anything. Well, again, I'm not trying to do Monday morning quarterback. I'm not trying to criticize Ted Nesi and Tim White. But to me, the obvious question is the person that had been lieutenant governor for 6 years was Governor McKee, who did not attend her kickoff announcement. So in essence, so she's saying he did a sleepy job. I just don't understand how they don't ask that.
From 12 News.
I do want to get to the part of
But I'm not concerned with that.
The other political question, we do want to get to some policy issues, is, as you know, people at the State House puzzle about your relationship with Governor McKee.
Yeah.
He appointed you because of how he came into office back in 2021. He didn't attend your campaign kickoff. I asked his campaign this week because I saw a different, one of your opponents say, "Oh, I'm the only one with a general officer endorsing me." And I asked Governor McKee's campaign, is he endorsing? And they haven't gotten back to me yet, whether he's endorsing you. What happened? Or has nothing happened and people are reading too much into it?
I think people are reading too much into it. This is the nature of the office. Here in Rhode Island, the office of governor and lieutenant governor run independently in the primary and in the...
Yeah, we know how it works. See, what happens is, yeah, we know that. But how come he's not endorsing you? How come he's not endorsing you, Governor?
Price grocery.
Yeah, she wants to set the price for groceries as if she should. Her business experience, Lieutenant Governor Matos, he was an assistant manager at Dollar Tree. That's her business. She wants to set prices for groceries.
When I learned about this, actually was trying to bring the National Supermarket Association to open a supermarket in Woonsocket. And
I mean, it is uncomfortable to listen to. Let me hear. I just want to get
so we don't want to continue to create food deserts here in the state of Rhode Island.
Deserts.
Because every restricted...
So the lieutenant governor should set the price in grocery stores.
Public, I think in 1994.
94.
Okay. You didn't speak English at the time when you came here.
I'll save this part. We are going to get to. This is where she then talks about that she wants to abolish ICE. And I will be playing that because, again, nothing against those guys. We're going to be joined by Justin Katz in just a moment. Nothing against those guys, but maybe they don't want to scare her off. They also at the end say, would you agree to a debate? Maybe that was, so then that's playing into, but that's a fair question. She is just then given talking points. So if they ask, how come Governor McKee's not endorsing you? Explain democracy. Explain democracy. Explain democracy. You were in a signature scandal that people were literally arrested for your congressional campaign. Is that a democracy? She was desperately trying to get a job with the Matos campaign. Excuse me, with the Harris campaign. So the fact that they, you know, that she was praying that, in fact, that Kamala Harris would win the election. So now in just a couple moments, we are going to be joined by Justin Katz, managing editor for anchorrising.com. and we're going to discuss politics this week. But this portion of the program, and before the hour's over, I am going to touch on the Nancy Guthrie case. There's some people that are moving in a direction that I certainly, number one, don't endorse, and number two, I think it's very dangerous to go into the direction that some people are choosing to go to. Certainly not me. But I want to remind you about the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick, and they also now have the Lodge at Coesit, and you're going to love it. The Coesit Inn, whether it's lunch or dinner or drinks on the lounge or now the coffee at Coesit, a great meal. So many people are stopping in. They have all different types of coffee flavors. Try it out. And what I've also learned is the number of people, regardless of the temperature, that they prefer ice. Jim was telling me 95% of their orders are coffee orders made with ice, and there's all different types of flavors. It's a lot of the younger kids. I've also learned, so I have 3 children. My son is not a coffee drinker. My 2 daughters both order some form of an ice type of coffee, not necessarily just iced coffee, but now they have all different types of flavors. But stop in and see them, Coffee at Coesit, and it's a great place to meet. They also have different things, the delicious food that go with coffee, the Coffee at Coesit. I also want to remind you folks about Propane Plus, especially, more people are moving to propane. If you use propane, log on at Propane Plus, online at propaneplus.com, residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. Now in Rhode Island, call them 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling. Remember, always online, 24/7 at propaneplus.com. Heating and cooling, request service. They have a great user-friendly website. You just type in your zip code. It's online at propaneplus.com. You can depend on Propane Plus. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, and we're going to talk to Justin Katz, managing editor for anchorrising.com. The other, someone did ask me about getting in touch with attorney Stephanie Murphy, and I think that's a very good idea, as a matter of fact. It wasn't someone, I forget who it was. Someone emailed me and said over the weekend, one of her coworkers was arrested on a DUI. I won't give out the name, but call Stephanie Murphy, 401-228-8271. And you don't have to wait. You can call 24 hours, 401-228-8271, 24/7 for Marin and Murphy Law Firm. Don't take any chances. Call. You're going to need representation. Call Stephanie, 401-228-8271. Let's bring him on, folks. He is the managing editor for anchorrising.com. Our segment is Politics This Week. It is Justin Katz. Justin, I'd like to start off. I think this is interesting. You and I have talked about the Ken Block campaign, and this is different. He's already out with a poll, some polling numbers, and I wanted to hear some of your thoughts on this Block campaign. First look at the general election numbers that he's put out.
Yeah, well, the first thing I thought was, wow, this is interesting. Let me take a look at this. The second thing I thought when I did look at it was, come on now, Ken. So his big headline that he's telling everybody is it shows him ahead of McKee, beating Guthrie in the Republican race, and McKee, he's statistically tied with folks. That's what he's running with. But if you look at the results, what they actually did was they called and people answered, and they asked them, they did a poll, and Block gets beat badly in both cases. He beats the Republican Guthrie on the survey, but not the Democrat. Then the person doing the poll says a couple nice things about Ken, testing messages, which is completely legitimate. And after having said, oh, well, an independent could really do great things for Rhode Island, then they ask again, have I changed your mind? And then he beats McKee and ties folks. So it's not really a poll, and it is interesting, and it's worth him talking about. It shows he's not he's not negligible in the race, but he's just out there so quickly saying it shows me beating McKee, which was just not honest. And to me, that was kind of it just reinforces my impression of him. And of course, to bear in mind here too, that method shows him winning, assuming nobody else does anything. So if he's the only one out there with messaging, and McKee and the Republican or folks in the Republican say nothing and don't get their messages out, that would be his result, maybe. So it's interesting to see, and it is, as you say, it's interesting that he's right out of the gate with this poll. I think suggests to me it's more like he's trying to change the conversation a bit and make himself seem more credible because he's rushing out there with a poll while others aren't available. But the big winner in my mind of the whole exercise is Folks. She beats him handily, well, in the first time they ask, and then at least ties him in the second, which says to me she can go around saying, look, even Ken Block's internal polls say I'm your best bet to beat him. So I think she's the real winner of this situation.
It sounds like Justin, it would, and again, one of the reasons I pivot to you, I want people to know Justin's very good statistical information, breaking things down. I view it a couple things. Number one, it sounds like a push poll where the person asking the questions, they're actually trying to lead the person a direction. And many times after they're asking questions, they then come back and say, based on this, would you now be more inclined? So it sounds as though they're trying to lead them to, it seems to be his strategy, Ken Block, who, again, I'll just put out the disclaimer, and I think I can speak for Justin, but I've known him a long time. I like him. I respect him. So he wants to run, he can run. But it sounds, Justin, to me that this is meant really as a fundraising mechanism, where then this goes out to donors, potential donors, where they want to say, look, hey, I have concrete evidence that I actually can win this race. I did see Patrick Anderson of the Journal. He has, it's funny the way that Ken Block described it, because then he has McKee 28, Block 20, Aaron Gukian, the Republican, 15, Helena Folks 33, Block 18, Aaron Gukian 16. Justin, what this shows me, unfortunately, could end up being that a Ken Block candidacy, one of the things that it does is just ensure that it's going to be a Democrat that ends up winning the race.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we've been discussing already. And it's pretty much what everybody expects all the analysts expect it out of the box, that he'll be basically a spoiler.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of anti-McKee and apparently anti-Democrat sentiment.
Right.
And Ken would take a big enough portion of that, and he wouldn't have to take too much if it's that close, 30-ish to 30-ish with the Republican, the non-Democrat taking the lead. It doesn't take much to make the Democrat win in those circumstances, and that's really what appears to be happening there. And you mentioned push polls. Another interesting thing just for people who are interested in this kind of thing, it says the top issues are infrastructure and good government, and that kind of makes me smile, because that's where you could see that's literally what the push poll would be. To me, The questions read a bit more like he was just testing Ken Block messaging, which is great. Campaigns can do this. You don't necessarily release your findings. You find out people like what you're saying, you say more of it. But it sounds like they went, oh, what do you think about the Washington Bridge situation? Is this important to you? And you get people saying, yes, yes, yes. Oh, did you know Ken Block is really good on this issue? Oh, I didn't. Would you vote for Ken Block? Yes, I would. And that's how they get those numbers from what Anderson showed, which was he loses, to Ken Block beats McKee and doesn't beat Folks. But I think the fundraising angle is a big part of it. I think he's just trying to gin things up. He's been posting on social media saying, I've got $40,000 in donations in 1 week. The media is talking about me all over the place. So it's kind of an initial push just to get everybody thinking of him as a credible player, and then he'll try to roll out a candidacy. But I would, before people give him a whole lot of money, I would hope they would look at the polling numbers and be smart enough to do that. But it's possible not.
I mean, it does show, according to his initial poll numbers, that, I think you could make an argument. I'm just looking at, and Channel 12 did a story on it, McKee 28, Block 20, Gukian 15. Well, actually, if you just had one of the candidates, whether it's Ken Block or Gukian, that's 35 to 28. So you kind of take from there. Justin, what do you make? Channel 12 also says, and I just saw this, that both of them, both McKee and Folks, are very quick to point out that that he had previously been a Republican. That to me is what that shows me, or just tells me, is that this attitude that the Democrat Party has of, before anyone gets excited, just remember he did run in the past as a Republican, is if, to me, they frame it almost as if he had a criminal record.
Yeah, well, they've invested a lot in that, right? It's the party. You've got to be a Democrat, and there's always the tacit, we're watching you. We're keeping an eye. We're keeping score on who's been a Republican. If you vote for them, that's going to be in their primaries or whatever. That's going to be on your record. We'll keep an eye. And I know people respond to that in business. They won't come forward with things. They just don't want the light on them. But to me, I mean, they have a point. They don't even have to be partisan there. I mean, he was moderate, then a Republican, now independent. It's not, I mean, and that's fine, but it just, with him in particular, it reinforces the idea he's just in it for his own thing, and that could be good or bad, but he's got no stable force. He's not going to sit around and help build a party. He's not going to stay in something if it's not getting him something in return. And that's, I think, that's going to dog him, and he's going to be hit by both the Democrat and the Republican sides. Like, who is this guy? He's everywhere. And Republicans will say, well, he's not with us on abortion or gun rights. And Democrats will say, well, he's run as a Republican. He's one of those big, scary people. And he's just going to lose it on both sides. And that's why I kind of question the poll, because it assumes nobody else says anything or tries to message about him or message about themselves. And Gukian could come out and point these things out in a poll, and you'd see Block's numbers go down correspondingly. So there's still a lot to go, and it's definitely showmanship at this point.
Yeah, and again, it's early on. He can use it as a fundraising tool, but I think his positioning of, I'm the guy that, disproven against President Trump in 2020. As I've said in the past, I wish Ken Block would focus on voting in Rhode Island. And what I think he should also recognize is, even though he did do a book tour and wrote a book, and he's, constantly coming after the administration, that still, at the end of the day, the folks, McKee Democrat Party, they're still going to say, nope, too late. In 2014, you ran as a Republican. Like, nope, it doesn't, a leopard can't change his spots like that. No, you're damaged goods. You ran like that. To me, is frightening how they view the Republican Party. Now, Justin, I do want to get your take on, and I want people to understand, if this was just someone running for office, I wouldn't pay as much attention to it. But I'm talking about the Lieutenant Governor Matos, of which we pay her salary and her staff. She has a budget. That office has a budget of well over $1 million. But her appearance on Newsmakers, I think they said it's the first time in 5 years that she's been on. I mean, to me, Tim White, Ted Nesi, who I like and respect, I think they were kind of holding back because they do want her. Like, at the end, the final question is, will you agree to debate? As if, I don't think that needed to be asked live on the air. But to me, what's frightening, Justin, is just the person of her answer, what her answers were. And to me, it has nothing to do with gender or anything. Just, if you just put the transcript of this is Lieutenant Governor and the way she answers questions, you see, number one, why she doesn't do interviews. And number two, it's actually frightening to me that her staff prepped her, got her ready. These are the talking points. And then they just put her out there. It is, I can't come up with someone who is less impressive than Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos that holds office.
Well, a lot of it just shows you how this identity politics on the Democrat side elevates people beyond what they're ready for. And as you're saying, it's not just this interview, it's multiple interviews. There is the speech problem. She has an accent that's thick and can be hard to understand. We could maybe forgive that. But then there are times when she's answering questions and it's just rambling and the incomplete sentences. And these are from sometimes when she's reading prepared statements. And it's just, there's a level of, I guess, professionalism there that's not there. And it's kind of makes you wonder. And her answers aren't, it would be another thing if when you dug down into that morass of language, you got to something genius or something that really showed she knows what she's doing. They're just talking points. They're just the partisan talking points that we get from every other Democrat. And so it is a real question to me. It's almost like that serves as an advantage because reporters don't want to seem like they're insulting her intelligence or criticizing her accent, the fact that she's not a native English speaker. They don't want to seem like they're criticizing that. And so there's almost like kid gloves. And there are other ways in which that's true. I mean, she's wasn't asked about the children beating a man to death in her
Right.
near her home. I mean, that's, it's like, and I could almost see that. And you've made great points in the past about maybe asking whether the politicians kind of said, here are ground rules. I'm not answering any questions on this particular issue.
Yes.
That's possible. But either way, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And I think it's WPRI recently was talking, I think it might've been a Ted Nesi column talking about, different instances of violence, and including the trans shooting at the ice rink, and then another one from November or October, and just skipped over like 4 kids beating a man to death in Providence, as if violence doesn't matter, only gun violence matters. And but that's something she should be prepared to talk about. And frankly, if these progressives like her were representing the people they claim to care about most, the equity, the diversity, if they cared, that would be their primary concern. They would be trumpeting that. We wouldn't be you and me on a YouTube channel or radio saying, this is a big deal. We should talk about this. It would be them saying, we have babies beating people to death. And yet they don't, because they don't like the questions that raises. And that's where, again, Matos with the language problems, you could see why that would be a panic-inducing moment if they were to bring that up, because she doesn't articulate things well when they're talking points, let alone would have to dig into a deep, complicated, heart-wrenching issue like this.
She wants to abolish ICE. Then when asked, she said, oh, no, police should enforce the law. Mayor Smiley, these others have all said, we don't want our police acting as immigration officers. What she was really saying is, if an illegal gets caught stealing a car or murdering someone, assaulting someone, she's basically saying she wants them treated just like anyone else, not that should lead to deportation. They didn't really flesh that out. I think her business that she thinks like that she should set grocery prices is just astounding to me. She had no answer on rent control. And just the final thing about this, Justin, for someone that just keeps blabbing on about democracy, and this is about our democracy, and it's to her, it's a good thing that 4 people are challenging her in a primary. She said, well, that shows that everyone wants my job because I do such a good job. She doesn't have to raise money because everyone knows who she is. But for someone blabbing on about democracy, there are people that were arrested and are being prosecuted for her signature scandal for Congress. Nothing undermines, quote, democracy. Nothing undermines democracy more than a signature scandal of fraud.
Oh, certainly. And I mean, that's another area where just you won't get any questions from the media. And a lot of the local, and at a time when we're seeing the courts refusing to force the state to give the Trump administration voter data, there's just this, you're not allowed to question it. And it makes you wonder, why not? There looks to be fraud, especially in Providence. You'd think she would be a great person, because we've talked before about when she was running for Congress, and there were districts where that state senator beat her in mail ballots and in her own local districts. You would think Matos would be saying, this is something we should look at, because these people can beat me at this. But the whole party is just so invested in these mail ballots and in the illegal immigration, which to me is pretty much the same issue. They're just so invested about it. They can't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. And the news media is not going to press them on it.
No, it shouldn't be. But I want people to understand what Justin is saying exactly right. Anything that has to do with elections or voting is immediately, locally anyway, dismissed as, oh, that's a MAGA issue. Oh, it's the Trump people, blah, blah. We're not talking about that. I mean, the fact that she lost her own district to a state senator because of mail ballots, to me, just shows the potential fraud. Justin, I'm also curious, with House Speaker Joe Shekarchi, first it was the dance of back and forth, whether or not he's going to run for governor. Then he finally is not running for governor. Now it's, he can't make up his mind whether or not he should take this slot on the Supreme Court. I just want your thought of that as the speaker. And to me, I know the speaker. He's always been nice to me. He's been nice to my family. But part of being a leader is you're supposed to be able to make decisive decisions at very important, crucial times. And if I didn't know any better, like he can't seem to easily make a decision on this.
Yeah, it is curious. I mean, many times analysts have said that the House Speaker is actually the top most powerful job in the state, which is curious. It doesn't pay very well, and it's not a glorious position.
Well, it
for a
controls
long
all the
time.
money in the budget.
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you need some way to. I mean, if you're being cynical, there's the reason to get there is what to do good things and spend a lot of time on it. I would hope so, but that hasn't been the case. So that's why people speculate: is he going for higher office? Is he going for the Supreme Court of the state? And that, I mean, he credit for being honest. He's right to say this is literally a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it's one that people have been speculating he had his eye on as the Supreme Court justice. That you could see. That's a lifetime sinecure. You sit there, you're involved, you're relevant, you're doing interesting work, you're having a big effect on policy, and as we see with judges overruling things. So it makes a lot of sense. My gut tells me he's really just being kind of coy. He doesn't want to, like one of the professors at Roger Williams is saying he can't run. He's in the General Assembly, so he doesn't want to step into it right now. But he's being kind of coy, let it play out. It sounds like a position he would want. But then again, he's raised some millions of dollars, and he's got sitting in the bank he hasn't needed for running for office. He could use that to run for Senate or what have you. So it is a curious situation. One other angle, though, I feel like watching the progressives kind of go after him on this is that he's. I mean, it sounds like you know him better than I do, but from what I understand, he's relatively reasonable. He would be on the more moderate side of the Democrat Party in the current situation. And so a lot of the pushback I think we're hearing is from progressives who are saying, no. We don't want any legacy moderate Democrats getting into the Supreme Court right now because we want all radical progressives in there.
Right.
And so that's another angle that I haven't seen a whole lot of talk about, but I think that should be considered.
Do you think, just finally on this, should this be an issue? For instance, if you were running for office, as we're seeing these things bandied about and tossed around, Montalbano, lifetime appointment, he's Joe Montalbano, the former senator of North Providence, who was total insider. Now, lifetime appointment, 220. The speaker's trying to decide, do I want this lifetime appointment? I just wonder, is there, I can't stand the fact that it's a total insider's game, these lifetime appointments, ridiculous amount of pay. The thing about Montalbano, so he gets 221 a year, then forget about the pensions and everything else. So is that a no? So is he not doing it for 199? If he was offered, you're the chief judge, does he say, oh, no, I'm not doing it for 199? It's going to be, do you think, is there an appetite with the public, Justin, your opinion on whether or not that should play? Because I just don't hear anyone go after the whole process of the judges.
I wish I could say yes. I think it's an issue.
But
we've been seeing this for a long, long time. I mean, Montalbano was in the Senate. Talk about how it wasn't even judgeships; it was lifetime appointments to be magistrates. And so everybody was putting in their time in the Senate. That's why they do it. It's a lot of work for not a lot of pay to be a legislator. That's one of the reasons some of them do it, is to get that lifetime appointment. And so nobody cared then. Nobody cared. And if anything, the concern I think has gone down and down and down. And we especially saw it recently. I mean, Aaron Lynch Prada was a senator. And became a judge. The Ethics Commission said, whatever, we don't care. And I just feel like a lot of Rhode Islanders have just given up because this is just the way it is. We used to object. We said, this shouldn't be the way this is. I just don't see a whole lot of appetite for it. There's got to be huge kind of structural change to just throw this, to stop this and make it an issue again. But I don't know how to do it because Rhode Islanders are too often asleep on these sorts of issues.
Yeah, I have a problem with the lifetime appointments. And also, if
definitely.
We're going to be realistic about it, they're basically part-time jobs. I mean, I in the past have spent a lot of time at courthouses. Once they leave for lunch, they're basically gone for the day. It is a ghost town. You go to Kent County in the afternoon. I'm not saying that there aren't some hearings, and once in a while, if you have a trial, maybe that's a little more consuming. But for the most part, a lot of them, summers, forget about it. It's like a total ghost town. There's no heavy lifting, as they say, all the holidays. And then you go in for a few hours in the morning, you're on the bench, and then basically, you're done, whatever at lunchtime. Justin, again, folks, our segment is Politics This Week. With us is Justin Katz, managing editor at anchorrising.com. Justin, what do you make of the problems in Cranston? He is the only Republican mayor. Cranston, by all accounts, I think, and granted, I grew up there, but I grew up in Edgewood, but Western Cranston has seen tremendous growth. Garden City, part of Cranston, is so like bustling with people that maybe used to go shop in Providence or used to go out to eat in Providence. Now they go in Cranston. By all accounts, the Cranston police do a great job, but these deficits that they're dealing with, it's 10 million in the hole, and everybody's got to pay 500. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on the situation in Cranston with these headlines.
Well, where I would definitely fault the mayor and a lot of our politicians down here, and both parties, is not really putting the spotlight where it should be. And you could almost excuse them a little bit, because so much of what's driving this is not anything municipalities can do anything about. You're talking about pensions, you're talking about state laws that make it impossible to negotiate with, say, your fire department union. In a way, we did that in Tiverton. We got a great deal with our fire department, and then our own Representative Edwards changed the law, or led the charge to change the law so that they would calculate their overtime differently, and blew our whole thing up. So I have some sympathy for that, but that's really what they need to talk about. What we're seeing is all of our budgets are just being consolidated down to paying the union members. That's all there's going to be money for, and I think that needs a lot more spotlight put on it. And I'm not hearing that out of there. But that's really what we need to see from especially Republican mayors.
Yeah, I had heard that, and I don't know all the details who it was, but one of the, I don't know, I don't remember which department or what have you, but the overtime budget used to be 600,000. Now it's like 2.4 million. And every time, I remember Laffey going to war because the school department, which the mayor doesn't control, would consistently come over, 2 million over budget, 2.5 million over budget. I think this time it's 1.5 million over budget. But it's hard. I just don't think it's good for the party, the brand, that you're the only Republican. And I like Mayor Hopkins, and I get along with him, but there's something wrong there with these types of deficits. Justin, finally, I'm just curious. You put out the Rhode Island Voting Rights Act would destroy Rhode Island democracy. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that.
Right. Well, this is I think a very important post on Anchor Rising to people. It's a little bit dense, but people really need to understand the Democrats in the state are saying this just codifies federal law, and there are a lot of people who believe that. It's not. It's literally would give any activist group in the world the ability to file a complaint letter and then a lawsuit against any municipality or state agency saying that their laws, and it doesn't have to be election law, it could be any law they've got, will make it harder for them to win their issue in that town, in that city, or in that agency, and then give judges incredible power to tell municipalities, even if the municipalities are forbidden from doing something by law, the judge would say, no, you can do it. I'm going to let you do that to even this out. It is literally the end of democracy. Your vote will not count. And what's so disappointing is there are even somewhat moderate, or what I would have thought were somewhat moderate legislators supporting this bill, the Rhode Island Voting Rights Act, maybe because they just don't understand what it does. But people should really pay attention to this one. This one will, it may not happen next year, but over the next decade, this will just completely erase our ability to vote in new people and get a real genuine change of policy.
Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin Katz is on. What do you have this week, Justin?
Well, Monique Chartier on Anchor Rising has been following the truck tolls and the silence that they're getting, local media is getting from the McKee administration, and the fact that they're maybe starting to admit that it's costly and not very effective. But it's been surprising to Monique and to all of us that there's just not been more said about it after the state won its lawsuit in the courts. And so that's definitely worth checking out at anchorrising.com.
Folks, again, he is Justin Katz, managing editor at anchorrising.com. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, folks, there it is, our segment with Justin. This portion of our program brought to you by Capitol Fence. Now, Friday night, we were out, and something happened with a neighbor, and he tried to go in one direction, and he went in, I don't know what happened, but we have the video up. But what did I say? You see, this elderly neighbor plowed through a fence and then crashed into a house. I said, call Capitol Fence, 401-618-4407. With all the crime, with the illegals prowling around the streets, folks, as a sanctuary state, they're just inviting crime to come into the area. You have an obligation, really, to protect yourself, protect your family, your employees. Capitol Fence, call them, 401-618-4407. 618-4407 for capital offense. Call Mike Rizzo today, serving Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. They do repair and maintenance, highest quality, and a free estimate around your property or your business. They're licensed and insured. Capital Fence, 401-618-4407. I do want to touch on the Nancy Guthrie case. And there's parts of this. Now, I'm going to be doing an update later. I've been doing some video updates. And what my plan is, it's all still fluid. But what I plan to do is essentially each day, when it calls for it, to do an update. I don't think I did go live last week on TikTok with the FBI information, but there are some parts of this that occasionally I will comment on. And one of the things that I want to mention, as someone that spent 7.5 weeks on the ground out in Tucson and every day out in the Catalina foothills, everyone has their own style. And I don't tell people how to do their coverage. I don't like when people try to tell me how to do my coverage. But there's a couple things that then people ask me about, and I do feel not obligated, but I can certainly comment on it. There is someone that's using video of me outside of that hospital. It happened the second week, the Tuesday night, and I showed up at the hospital because we had heard that an 84-year-old woman was airlifted there. And there's someone that is using my video without permission, and they keep highlighting that, and they're making videos about it. And what I find distressing is they're trying to give the appearance, seemingly implying that that was actually Nancy and she's alive. So there's a couple things about this I want to talk about. Number one, that was not her. Here's what I don't understand. If you believe all police lie, then I don't understand why you're even following the investigation. Like, you can't have it both ways. There are people that I hear from them. I see their comments. There are some people that think all police lie. Well, then why do you follow a case? That, like, to me, that would be someone. Like, there are people that watch professional wrestling and like, they know it's rigged, but they don't care. Like, I wouldn't watch a sport if I really thought that the game was rigged. If I truly thought, there are people that think, there's people that are so conspiracy oriented. If I thought the NFL was truly rigged, there are some people, it's all rigged. I don't know. I wouldn't watch it, but I don't understand why they would watch it. So if you think my dealings with police, no, that's not true. Not all police lie. There are examples when police have lied, or district attorneys or attorney generals, and they've gotten in a lot of trouble for it. There are some pretty high profile examples of that, like the Duke lacrosse case. That guy was putting out misleading information, false information, and he paid a stiff penalty, as he should have. Many years ago, there was an FBI agent in Boston in the 80s, into the 90s, that was basically in business. It was FBI agent John Conley, and he was in business with Whitey Bulger and Steve Fleming. Yeah, that is true. He also went to, he's still in federal prison over it. But it's not the norm. I mean, I covered during Operation Plunderdome, Barney Prignano. They gave test answers to people taking the exams for police promotions in Providence under the Cianci administration. No, it doesn't go on anymore. It did go on then. I was in court when he even testified and admitted about it. But it's not the norm, is what I'm trying to say. And then different police departments have had problems. Warwick during the Scott Hornoff years had problems. Cranston for many years had some problems within their police department. But it's, like I said, it's not the norm. So the people that say, like, well, all the police, like, and I just say, cite me some examples, cite any recent example. But the notion that she's alive, I'll tell you what I find frightening. is anyone that's going down the path. Someone sent me, again, I'm not like, I don't use social media to fight with people, and I don't use social media. I don't have the time for it. Some people, that's their hobby. They go on social media, they do it to argue with people and fight with people. I don't have any interest in that. I don't have time for it. That's unnecessary drama. My drama takes place out in the street covering crime. I don't need any type of online drama. Some people live for that. But when I heard that there's people that are literally going to the cemetery where Savannah's Guthrie's father is laid to rest, Charlie, I believe, and they're looking to see if Nancy's buried there. Well, that is Looney Tuneville. I want to be I want nothing to do with anyone that does something like that. That is an invasion of privacy. You have no right to do that. That's what, by the way, that's how you get in trouble. And that leads to arrests. And how would you like it? I mean, let me tell you a quick example with Sandy Hook. I'll tell you how Alex Jones, who got in a lot of trouble, basically, fabricated all of that those kids were alive, the parents were crisis actors. So I want to tell you about Alex Jones in just a moment. The people that are doing this with the Guthrie case, I have no sympathy for anyone that gets in trouble doing that, because that is complete lunacy if you're doing that. This portion of the program, though, is brought to you by ServPro. Folks, call ServPro of Providence today. When disaster strikes, call ServPro. They're fast, they're thorough, they're professional. 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. Fast, thorough, professional. ServPro of Providence. If you have a fire, if you have a flood, if you have a fire, you're going to have fire damage, you're going to have smoke damage. They're going to have to put out the fire. You get water damage, and then you could get mold. ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500. With Alex Jones and Sandy Hook. And there's still people to this day. That believe that hoax, and it was. How bad was it? You had people, they would go to the cemetery where these parents, can you imagine? It would be traumatizing enough. I think it would be a life-changing event that you never get over. And that is that your 6-year-old or 7-year-old child was shot and killed by a gunman at school. As if that's not bad enough. Now you're getting harassed by people saying it's fake, that you're an actor. Then watch, I have talked about this for a long time, on HBO Max, The Truth versus Alex Jones. Then people going to the cemetery, filming themselves, urinating on the graves, and sending it to the parents, threatening that they were going to dig up the children. You had this nutcase woman from the Midwest saying they need to exhume the bodies to prove to us that they're not there. According to who? It's never enough. With the conspiracy crowd, you can't win with the conspiracy crowd. There are some people out there that someone will post 10 things, and if they're right on one of them, they ignore the rest. That's not how it works. If you follow facts, you ignore the noise. But when I heard that people are going to the cemetery to see if Nancy's buried there, that is Looney Tune. There's something wrong with you. You have no right to do that. But I also want to point out that is moronic. I have no respect for anyone that would do that. So we're all fooled. I'll tell you what's so disgraceful about it is it's people, they actually think they're smarter than the rest of us. We all fell for it. That she died, the family quietly buried her, and what? The sheriff and the FBI, they're just going along with it? That is the talk of someone who has no idea what they're talking about. And I repeat, I say the same thing. Cite me an example when that has happened in the past. Totally ridiculous. Listen, that was not Nancy at the hospital. When I was out there, I had people, a couple, not a lot, but a few people that suddenly started streaming. Listen, let me be very clear. Just because someone starts streaming on YouTube, it doesn't make them an expert on anything. It doesn't make them have experience on anything. It just makes them someone streaming on YouTube. And towards the end, before I left, there was suddenly, two young guys just showing up. Nothing against them, but they didn't know anything. They've never broken a story. They've never dealt with police. They've never covered a case. They've never covered a trial. And you have some other people that are doing that. There was someone who I know and I'm friendly with, and their theory was, oh no, Nancy's alive, but they're trying to catch who did it. Listen, she's not alive. They can't do that. They can't. There'd be no case because then it'd be tossed. If they found her remains, you would know it. If she had been rescued or they found her alive, you'd know it. If you are one of those individuals, I just, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. That is, P.T. Barnum said, sucker born every minute. There are some people that fall for that. Well, all I'm just asking, all I'm saying, it was that, yeah, I was at the hospital that night, and that night we knew that it wasn't her. Why did I go? Because there were other media gathering there, and we learned it was Tuesday night, February 10th. I was there outside the hospital. I was. They detained someone in Rio Rico, and then at the same time, this woman was airlifted. Those things can happen. But she's not alive. That's number one. Number two, for anyone that wants to, and I know how this works because you see it with another case. There's people who they're going along, and it's kind of like a band. Maybe I can give a good analogy. You're a band and you have your own songs. Maybe you have 10 songs. And you play the first song and it's not a big deal. And you play the second song and it's like then you play the third song, original song. And people flood to the dance floor and they're all singing and clapping. Then you play the fourth song and everyone then goes and sits down. And then you play the fifth song and everyone goes and sits down. Of those 5 songs, what song would you be inclined to play again? You'd play the third song that filled the dance floor and had people singing and clapping. So it's kind of like that. There are some people that stumble into that. Huh, that's funny. Every time I say the son-in-law is involved, Tommaso, people love it and they send money. So then they just keep saying it. Every time they say Nancy's alive, people send money and the audience fills up. So they keep, it's like Pavlov's dog. But I caution people, this business of let's go after the family. Let's pretend she's alive. I believe, that is a dangerous road to go down. And you see people do it with different stories. You saw it locally with the Karen Reed case. What people said every time they'd keep talking conspiracy, Colin Albert, Jen McCabe, the numbers would go up. And then the truth doesn't matter anymore. And now it just becomes, I'll just keep saying it to generate. A lot of people are watching. That's what happened with Alex Jones. Every time they posted Sandy Hook hoax, boom, it would rocket on the InfoWars website. It was all a lie. It was all made up. He had to finally admit to it. He finally had to apologize to the families. It bankrupted him because it was all based on a lie. Speaking of the Karen Reed case, if you want to know the real story on that, and I'm going to touch on that in just a moment, but I want to remind you about J. Perry Paving. Hey, get your driveway paved. Why not? J. Perry Paving, high quality, fair pricing, exceptional service, serving Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Free estimate, any project, give them a call. Serving Rhode Island and Massachusetts, letter J, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730, letter J, J. Perry Paving. and also learn about the benefits of asphalt paving. They have a great package for veterans. If you're a veteran, or maybe your grandfather is, or maybe your father is, or maybe your son or daughter, or your girlfriend, J. Perry Paving, they have a special package for veterans to say thank you for your service. 401-732-1730. Alex Jones, there are some people that didn't learn the lesson, you know, as they say. Yeah, the speech is free, but you have to pay for the lies. InfoWars was making $800,000 a day. Do the math on that. 800,000 a day. Because every time they put up a Sandy Hook hoax, and it was green screen, and the way the father, how Robbie Parker, how he was acting, and he was an actor, and green screen, and it's all fake, and blah, blah, blah. Every time they did that, the numbers would shoot up, raking in the money. And it was funny until it wasn't funny. And now he's bankrupt, but it does happen. But there's a local example of that where there's lawsuits now. And, you know, this business that people can treat it as a joke. Alex Jones was ready to treat it as a joke. He was defiant, witch trial, it's all scripted, blah, blah, blah. Then you have to sit for a deposition. And the person that is going to bring them down is Colin Albert, where they picked out this 17-year-old kid. By the way, Karen Reed, I was in court the day they played her recording. Karen Reed, she was the one that said in the spring of 22, when she was getting arrested, oh, we all know this is a big joke, right? That it was Colin Albert and Brian Albert, and they pummeled him. And they picked out this kid who was in high school and did this whole narrative that he was a murderer and he killed people. And they were sending people to his college. He was going to play football at Bridgewater State College. He had to drop out of college. Some of their Looney Tune followers were going to the dorm. There's still people to this day that try to insist it. But there's also people to this day that still think that Sandy Hook was a hoax. But that's when it gets real. That's the most part that I would find interesting. When those people, they're going to have to sit there in a deposition. That video is going to be gold. And you can start with an attitude, and you can start like it's all a big joke. I assure, ask Alex Jones if it's a joke. No, that's when, and neither one of them ever really liked to answer questions. No, Colin Albert, that was the story they told. That was the story they created. That this 17-year-old kid was a vicious drug dealer, and John O'Keefe was lured into a trap. And when he walked in the door, boom, Colin punched him down the stairs, and without reason or motive, they beat him to death. Ludicrous. Then they backed off it. They backed off it in the second trial. They're still trying to keep it up a little bit. Karen Reed, though, went on EEI and said, no, she told the whatever, her friends on WEI that Colin she knows he had nothing to do with it. It's too late, though. But so there's people that trying to, the real, like, it's just ridiculous. But I'm telling you, that's how you get in trouble. When you start to go down that road, when you start to go down to the conspiracy part, it is, I mean, as much as we can all dismiss it, there are people that believe it. And you're seeing it with this case. And I think it's unfortunate because, the old adage, those who ignore history are condemned to repeat it, much like the Brian Kohlberger case, where there were all these theories on TikTok and other of who did it. And people talk endlessly about it. There was someone that died trying to become a Capitol police officer at the Rhode Island State House. And then you get people that try to create, like there's a cover up. Like, there's no cover up with it. Listen, there are things that happen. There are things that happen. There's people that join the military and for various physical reasons, they lose their life. It doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen every day, but it does happen. There are people that suddenly fall into something like that. It doesn't mean there's a cover up. Everything's not a conspiracy. So, but with the Guthrie case, Nancy Guthrie is not alive. Like, for someone to say, well, they're hiding it because they want to catch the person, those are the words of someone who truly doesn't understand how it works. You can't do that. If you are a police officer or an elected official, U.S. Attorney of Arizona, FBI, the Arizona District Attorney, why you get disbarred if you're an attorney. You get fired. You lose your pension. In some cases, people can go to jail. Why would they do that? Why would 25 people or more be involved in a conspiracy that she's actually alive? Then if they had a case, it would get tossed. If you're police or district attorney, you can't knowingly make false statements. There's laws against that. So she's not alive. People to be pushing that. When I heard people are going to the cemetery, I have no sympathy. You are literally really looking for trouble. And you have no right to do that. As if that would actually be going, oh yeah, the family quietly buried her. So every time the FBI and the police talk, they're all lying. Ridiculous. Folks, this portion of our program brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Call them. Preschool, daycare, before and after school care. Kids Club on the Pike. Call Kristen, 401-443-5336. Located right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line. It's Kids Club on the Pike. Give them a call. Before and after school care, preschool. It's a perfect venue. If you have a birthday party coming up for a child or a grandchild, you can rent out the whole place. Kids Club on the Pike. It's perfect. It's designed for children. 401-443-5336. I mean, years ago, someone was going to have a birthday party and they'd book out, or maybe they still do, Chuck E. Slee's. And every kid that leaves there then comes home with germs. Kids Club on the Pike is immaculate. Right off of 295. But no kidding. If you're looking for alternatives for daycare or preschool or before and after school care, give Kristen a call. She has several locations. Kids Club on the Pike, 401-443-5336 for Kids Club on the Pike. So this business, just to finish on, tomorrow, I'll talk a little bit tomorrow also on, I actually also can't believe the amount of construction that the state is under. It is just completely ridiculous is what it is. There's something to that. They're definitely trying to pour extra money into somebody's pocket, probably to make up for something, that was promised, like a campaign promise. But the amount of construction, it makes no sense at all. Everywhere you go in the state of Rhode Island, the roads are under construction. There's something that needs to be evaluated. And I think it'll lead to, they're just trying to pay as much money. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2:00 news. Everyone else, now we will be live tonight with Road Patrol Live. But I'm just saying, I have no interest with some of the conspiracy stuff that is out there. Some people like it. Obviously, there's a lot of people that like it. Let's keep pretending Tommaso is a criminal mastermind, because after all, he wasn't a band. So that makes him, that because he was a guitarist, I don't know what instrument he played, either, guitar or bass, but because of that, gives him the ability to outsmart the police and the FBI. But when people are going to cemeteries, that doesn't end well. And that, if I were the family, I'd be outraged. You don't have the right. You have no right. You're going to a cemetery because you think that Nancy Guthrie is maybe buried there. And we're all idiots. We're all fooled. The family quietly buried her. And the media and the sheriff and the FBI, they're all complacent in this conspiracy. Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds? Oh, my goodness. Yes, that's right. It's exactly right with Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk. There are people pushing that. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. It was Israel. Everything's not, yeah. I don't know who it was. That is, that is absolutely ridiculous. The remains unknown. Yeah, I don't know anyone that still thinks she's alive, all due respect. But that is preposterous. And I'll tell you why. But what is that? Erica already pregnant, so you be the judge. I have not heard that. Am I supposed to react to this? Erica is pregnant. Erica Kirk is pregnant. What's the source on that? I have not seen that reported anywhere. That was Juanita. I know Juanita. That is disgraceful. Going to the cemetery. Authorities say her whereabouts condition remain unknown. That's true. That's true. And believe me, when you have I don't know what that means. When you have a situation that is disgraceful. He wasn't even, their paths did not cross. Was Colin at 34 Fairview? He was, and then he left. Was John O'Keefe at 34 Fairview? He was. He did. He arrived there with Karen Reed. He did. He never went inside, but he did. But it doesn't mean they were there at the same time. He never saw him that night. Insanity. No, I refuse. That is insanity. But I'll also share with you. I sent you a message on TikTok. I suppose. What am I supposed to say? No? I mean, I guess you can. But here's the thing. I know how it works. Oh my God. They just make things up. They make things up. Yep. A little bit of truth in the lies. That's right, Debbie. That's what it becomes. Listen, I get it. Like, there's someone that's using my video. There's someone just going along. And if they were to go stream outside the sheriff's department, what would the chat say? No, we don't want this. Go to the house. Go to the house. You're at the sheriff's department. There's no one, you don't have a big crowd, and there's no one sending, super chats. You go to the house and people are like, what? Oh, well, then that's an easy decision. If you keep saying, okay, I'll go in front of the house and I'll say maybe it's Tommaso or she's alive, it just fuels it. Like I totally get how it works, but that is just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one. Well, we all can hope. I hope she's alive. Well, let's say, let's talk about that. The whole thing, business of God at the wheel. I want to address that. If we truly believe that, I have a problem with that statement. That makes us all puppets. Are you saying it was God's will that she was abducted? It was not God's will that she was abducted. It was a decision by man. This business of God at the wheel, that would almost be as though we're all puppets on a string. And then you don't, hey, Nancy was abducted, it's God's will. That's not God's will. God was trying to provide comfort to Nancy during that. But I hope she's alive. She's not alive. The family doesn't think she's alive. Do you understand we're going on 80 days? Why do you think Savannah's back at work? You hope she's alive. That she's not alive. Yeah. She's not alive. The family doesn't even think that. I don't even know what that means. Like, what is that worth? I hope she's alive. Well, yeah, but she's not going to be found alive. She may never be found. But I want to just touch on this. I hope she's found alive too. Well, there's no one that doesn't want her found alive, but it doesn't mean anything. So try to be positive, but you got to be realistic. That ship has kind of sailed. the expression of Jesus take the wheel, God's at the wheel, but that implies as though he's in control of this, and he's not. And I'm not trying to come at you, Erica, but it's kind of if you were to believe that, then when a drunk driver, when someone decides to drink and then they get behind the wheel, well, let me ask you this. The guy in Shreveport, Louisiana, they killed all those children. Do you think that was God's will? Was that God's will? Do you think is that all part of God's plan? I mean, as frightening as that story is, and I just realized I meant to play more of the Matos sound. I'll play it tomorrow. Is there anyone that thinks that what happened in Louisiana with those young children, is that all part of God's plan? Is that Jesus take the wheel type of thing? Anybody want to answer? I mean, I don't view that as. Do you think so? So God had, whatever God you believe in, he had that monster kill all those young children. That was God's will. No, it was not God's will. That was a demented lunatic who should not have had access to weapons. And I feel terrible for those little children. It is. That is it. Thank you, Debbie. God gives us free will. So the notion of, well, God willing, she's alive. God didn't have anyone go in to abduct Nancy. Now, listen, it's okay to be positive, but it's going to be grounded in reality, right? It's got to be grounded in reality. I hope she's going to be found alive. Where would you think she's going to be found alive? She's not alive. She's not alive. And no, that's not God's will. Thank you. Jesus, take the wheel. She's alive. No. Hey, it's God's decision if she's alive. No, it is not God's decision. God didn't make the decision to abduct her. God did not have that man. There's some people, it's just all part of God's will. God doesn't give you more than you can handle. So the family members of those little children, God decided to see if they could handle that burden of all those children killed by their father, that horrific crime. I'll take one more on this. It's hard to be grounded in reality when all we're doing is speculating. I disagree with that. You can speculate in reality. But it's the old thing of you go to sleep at 9:00 at night, you wake up at 6 and there's snow on the ground. You didn't see it snow. You didn't know it was going to snow. But I think it's fair you're in safe ground territory to say, wow, it must have snowed last night. So you didn't see it snow. You didn't witness it happening. But the speculation is it must have snowed last night and you just missed the forecast. There are some people that say if you didn't see it snow, it didn't snow. That's not what it is. But you can speculate in reality. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm actually not, Erica. It's hard to be grounded in reality. All we're doing is speculating. Well, I think it's important to be grounded in reality when you're speculating. We know what it wasn't. It's like the people that say she could be anywhere. Well, not really. Yeah, he always has to keep saying that. He's always going to keep saying that he hopes that she's found alive. He's never not going to say that. That is not true. You disagree with everyone's opinion. That's false. That's not true, but I'm not going to sit here and just go along with that. What opinion do I disagree with? No, I don't believe it's God's will that Nancy was abducted. And I don't believe you disagree with everyone's opinion. What's new? What does that mean? So it was Ryan Turner. It was God's will that man killed all those children in Louisiana. You believe that? When a drunk driver kills someone, well, that's just God's will. Nancy was abducted, all part of God's plan. You can believe that, but I find that impossible to believe. So in this business of everyone's opinion, I see people agreeing with me. Do you not see that, Ryan? Thank you, Brittany. It's God's will. I agree with you, Audrey. Everybody is, believe me. No. I have said, look at another one. Courtney, you're right. Not according to Ryan. Ryan says it was God's will that man killed those children, his children in Shreveport. That was God's will. Dream on, Ryan. Yeah. Ryan Turner, that was God's will. See, that takes the onus off the individual. Oh, I didn't do it. God made, there are people. I heard voices. God told me to do it. Oh, my God. All right, we're going to go off. You don't know that. It was not God's will. Ridiculous. But that's how people justify things. That's how people justify things. Like the guy that kidnapped Elizabeth Smart. The guy that kidnapped Elizabeth Smart. He kept saying God was telling me to do it. I just think that's the excuse of a wacko. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see what develops later on.